those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it if you can. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcasting platform, please follow and give us a 5-star review. It definitely helps with the algorithm getting our podcast in front of more listeners. All right, let's get on to the Arsenal game. Arsenal at home against Leicester. We end up winning it 4-2, but that scoreline is extremely incorrect, I'm going to say, based off what actually happened in the game. We go 2-0 up. I'm not going to go into this too much, but we go 2-0 up. It looks pretty good. Everything's going well. A couple of decent goals. Martinelli gets back on a score sheet, gets an assist, etc. And then everything goes mental. I don't know what happens, but somehow James Justin turns into the best right back you've ever seen in your life. His first goal is a bit dodgy, let's be honest. It gets a massive deflection off of Havertz and beats Raya. Nothing anyone can really do about that apart from Havertz just being a bit more aware of his surroundings. But the second goal, my goodness, might be up there with goal of the week. Volleys it in off the post, and it's 2-2. And we look poor. We really do look stinky at that point. And you know, Antony knows I was in the group chat going absolutely nuts. Not only because my FPL was poor, but also because Arsenal were seeming to lose a 2-goal lead against bloody Leicester. But yeah, we end up coming back 94th minute, I think it was, for our third goal, and then Havertz scores in the 97th minute. The 94th minute goal, absolute South Barclays football that was real old school Pulis Stoke bloody shovel it into the back of the net type of football. And then the Havertz one is equally crap as well. I can't remember who the defender is. I think it might have been actually James Justin. He comes in and tackles and kicks it into bloody Havertz, who just has a tap in. But yeah, Arsenal win 4-2. I don't even know what to say, man. Like, are there any questions you've got for me? Because that game was an absolute whirlwind roller coaster, and I don't even know what to make of it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Now, I just want to... A couple of things I wanted to ask you is obviously, like, I don't think you guys will expect or hope to, see such a tight game against, let's be honest, they're going to be relegation battling Leicester. And this is a bit of a consistent theme now, right? Arsenal have had tough games or struggled against teams that you would expect to beat at home. Like, I guess there's two ways to look at it. Are you enthused and happy with your like fighting spirit to overcome adversity? Because let's be real, that would have been a shock to everyone to see Arsenal lose a 2-goal lead. It's different, if for example, the game I'm thinking of is when Southampton came to the Emirates and they went 2-0 up and you kind of fought back and then somehow still managed to draw the game against them. But this was different because you were ahead, you were 2-0 up, you were kind of coasting, and then it was kind of a couple of sucker punches that came out the blue, and you still managed to win. So like, how do you feel about this bit of a trend that we're seeing with you guys at home against kind of they're not even I guess Villa aside, not even the stronger teams. Fulham, I'm thinking West Ham, Leicester, Southampton in previous seasons, you've struggled a bit. Are you positive about the fighting spirit, or are you a bit like worried by how difficult you're making it?
I mean, you've got to be. I think the answer is yes and yes. I'm happy about the fighting spirit. It's like the Reece Nelson goal, right? Like, those moments are important. They make you feel like, oh, that is what a title-winning team needs to do. When they're not performing, they've got to come in and they've got to win ugly, right? Like as Brad Gilbert used to say, you got to win ugly. And I think all of our fans have to be happy about that, because that is a lot of spine that we did not have, right? Backbone we did not have for at least 10, 15 years, right? Like, there was a severe lack of that, right? So that's got to be a positive sign for us, because when it's difficult, we find a way to dig in and get the result, right? Like, it's the Roy Keane saying, I don't care how you're playing, you got to get a result. And I think that's a positive. But in the long term, you can't have this many of these. You've got maybe one or two of those a season, max, right? Unless you're bloody Bayer Leverkusen and you're just going to do it literally every game for the last 10 games of a season, right? So from that point of view, I'm worried, because I'm thinking it's literally game week 6, man. Like, we've got literally 32 more game weeks. We've got 32 more matches to play alongside of, European fixtures and cups. We can't do this against the Leicesters of the world. And from my point of view, what was most worrying was when we couldn't break the goalkeeper down, we didn't have another gear to get into, right? We just kept having to do the same thing. And it's kind of worries me a little bit. I complained before about us not having enough styles of play, right? And I'm like us not being versatile enough. I definitely think that we've developed more versatility, but what I'm starting to see is we're starting to forget the first style of play that we had that was really attractive and that was really, um, you know, helping us kick on in that first season where we really challenged Man City, right? We were playing really nice football, really attacking football, like really going at teams, right? Of course, we had struggles every now and then, and our defense wasn't as good as it is now. But it almost seems like we've kind of maybe reverted into this new style of play, which is a more solid, compact Mourinho-esque type of play, and we've kind of lost that weapon of what we had in the first time, which was overwhelming quality. Where we came up against a Leicester, it doesn't matter if we let in 2 goals because we are too good attacking that we will break you down and we will outscore you. And that's the part that's starting to worry me a little bit, is that I'm looking at us and I'm thinking, are we actually going to outscore a lot of teams? Like Leicester aside, when you get to a better team, are we going to be able to outscore you, or are we just going to try to keep you really quiet and then house a goal in? And that's what I really don't want us to end up becoming. So that's a little worry. But I will say, obviously, Odegaard being out, Odegaard is so crucial to the way that we play. I can understand maybe why it looked a bit different. And I definitely think that Trossard is not a fit replacement, in my opinion, in the 10 position for Odegaard. I think Trossard is an unbelievable player and he's really good in terms of finishing, and he's basically our Jota now, but he's not a 10. And he's not creative enough. He's not dictated, like he can't dictate tempo enough to be our 10. And I think when you saw Nwaneri come on, we looked way better. Right, like when Nwaneri came on, from that point on, we were looking way, way better. And that after that is when the goals came. So I think that we really need a creative 10 in order to play that style of play. And I'm sorry to say that is essentially what our creativity boils down to, because I would love for it to be kind of a multifaceted approach where we had, a triple threat of creative options. But it really does seem like the 10 spot is where our creativity comes from. And if we don't have that 10 spot really firing, Saka doesn't look as good, Martinelli doesn't look as good, Havertz doesn't look as good, and we end up in a situation where we scrape past Leicester 4-2 in a game that really could have probably would have, in most cases, 99 out of 100 ends up as a draw, from 90 minutes onwards. So, yeah, just to reiterate, happy in the short term that we have got the grit to get through these difficult situations, but not happy that we're having to have them against Leicester in game week 6.
Yeah, fair enough. I get it, but I think I do think we have to factor a couple of things in, and I don't like um, expected goals, right? I think it's quite a simplistic way to look at it, but you did absolutely bang the door down, and I mean,
Yeah,
if it wasn't
Hermanson
for
had the game of his bloody life. I don't know where that guy's coming from or what he's auditioning for, but my man was on David De Gea smoke, as that stat I showed you says.
yeah, but I mean, so I guess I kind of get what you're saying, because the reality was it was really really tough, and you had to rely on some late goals to win the game. But in a normal scenario, you probably are 4-2 up already by the time you hit 90 minutes, because the goalie doesn't have that worldie every week. Um, so that's the only positive I will say, and say, I don't think this was a Fulham last season, a West Ham last season, um, or even a Brighton this season kind of performance, right? I think this probably was a game where you do win quite comfortably if it wasn't for that goalkeeper display from Hermanson. So that's the only thing I will caveat it with. I think you actually didn't play that poorly, and just in normal circumstances, Justin doesn't get that deflected goal. It's obviously hugely lucky. He also probably doesn't score that wonder goal on the volley, and it's probably stays as comfortable as it is. But I do think you can take more positives from this than anything, because despite that, and despite what looked like it being one of those days, it wasn't, and you managed to find a way. And this is a consistent theme about Arsenal. And yeah, I get it. I get your point about Odegaard, and I get your point about attacking fluency. It's not there, but yeah, the Brad Gilbert quote is a good one, because I think Saka and Martinelli have shown that they're able to, especially Saka more so than Martinelli in recent times, has shown that he's able to impact the game, even if he's maybe not playing the way that you want him to play, and he's not looking as smooth, and things aren't kind of all slotting in quite nicely, he can still have an impact from corners, from some set plays. You can still get goals a bunch of other ways, which is what you asked for on the pod since we pretty much started. Um, but yeah, I get it. There's a worry because it feels like it's been a little moment since you've seen a silky Arsenal display, like from the
Yeah.
back end of last season where you absolutely trounced teams and things were looking like really, really smooth and things were working really well. But yeah, I do think there's mitigating circumstances. Obviously, Odegaard being out, I think, and I hope Arteta, for your sake, gives Nwiri a chance in that Odegaard space because he's the closest thing you've got to an Odegaard type player, and he performs well enough in this last week to say that he might be worth giving a shot,
Mm.
right? And then you bring Trossard in off the bench like you have done in other games. Just let him have a go, man, because I think he's the closest thing, and clearly Arteta's decided Nwiri is a better shot than
Fabio
Fabio
Vieira.
Vieira
Yeah.
and Smith Rowe and those guys. So now you've made that decision in the transfer market. You've got to make that decision in the lineup, and
Yeah.
I like him. I like him, man. I think he looks really, really good, and I'm not
He
jumping
does.
on the
Yeah.
hype train. I think he stylistically fits with how you guys want to play, and I think he's almost got like kind of in a way to Cobby. He seems to have the temperament to not get
Yeah.
overawed by jumping in to the Premier League in the deep end because it is the deep end. 2-0 at
Yeah.
home to Leicester when you're being expected to win that game easily is not an easy situation to be thrusted into. So he's done well, man. And I think I would stay and lead more to the positive side of analysing that game. I think it was a big
Oh
3
yeah.
points.
No, I agree with you, and I think what was most critical about it was the context around it as well. I think the fact that Man City dropped points made that a must-win game, right? Like, we're coming off the back of a big controversial game against them, and there's been a lot said in the media. That game basically survived for a solid week and possibly even longer after it, and the fact that we were able to go out there even under pressure with the context of Man City dropping points against Newcastle to come out with 3 points is really, really important for me. And, I want to see us bit by bit build up tolerance to pressure, right? Like, I think that has been our downfall for the last 2 seasons is that we just couldn't deal with the pressure and we ended up either bottling it or just being a little bit too cagey and then, leaving the door open for City to come back into it. And that's my biggest criticism of Arsenal really over these last 2 years is that do we have the experience? Do we have the level-headedness? Do we have the calmness to get through a pressured situation? Because at the end of the day, it's the only way that you're going to win the league, right? There's going to be a lot of pressure on you, particularly with the way that the media is talking about how we play and all these red cards. We've got a big spotlight on us. So if our players can't deal with pressure, we're not going to win the league. And I know that this is not winning the league, obviously, like doing this against Leicester, but this was a pressured situation. All eyes were on Arsenal. All eyes were on, the relationship between us and Man City. It's a minimal amount. It's more pressure than you'd normally get on a weekly, week in, week out basis. And the fact that we came through it maybe is showing me that we're going to build up and become a bit more resistant to pressure and be able to deal with it. So, good signs. Just my heart can't take this every week, so please don't do it again. Let's just can we just have some uneventful games? Can we just smash someone 3-0 or just beat people 2-0? Can we just keep a clean sheet, keep everything chill? Because honestly, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to continue to watch all of these games if this keeps happening because health wise, I don't think a doctor would suggest it. But anyway, I'll get on to briefly just like who I think were standout players of the match. I want to give a moment to Martinelli. There's been a lot said about him and a lot of people talking about replacing him, and even when the whole, rumor mill was going on about Sterling coming to Arsenal, there's a lot of people saying, yeah, we need to improve that left wing position. Sterling would be an upgrade on Martinelli. And I just really want to come out and say, Martinelli needs to be given a chance, right? He's still a young player. People treating him like he's, like treating him in the same kind of circumstance that they're treating Saka. And I understand that Saka has kind of set the bar really high for consistency, showing up in big games, showing up week in, week out. And I know Martinelli maybe hasn't done that for the last probably 8-9 months. But it just goes to show, and I think Brennan Johnson, a good example of this too, is that these are our players, right? These players play for us. We want them to do well. And with a player like Martinelli, who we've seen do so well for us, right, in previous seasons, it doesn't make any sense for our fans to be so cutthroat and to treat him like a
Mhm.
piece of shit, right? He's a young player. I'll also add on to that he's had a massive change in our team, right? I think he's probably been the one most affected by the changes that we've made in our team over the last couple of years, right? We got rid of Zinchenko. We got rid of the Zinchenko partnership we had with him. We got rid of the Xhaka partnership they had with him, and now he's basically been having to deal with various different people in that left back position, whether it's been Timber, whether it's been a little bit of Zinchenko every now and then, or if it's been Kiwi, or he's had to deal with a lot of changes, right? And also that left centre mid position too. He's been very much affected by that, and I would argue that he's not as versatile as a Saka. So to say that he's supposed to just deal with all of that, take it on the chin, and still come out and just smash in 10, 15 goals a season like he did in that first season is mental, right? And I think we need to support him because I think he shows how good he can be. Right, he's a very direct player. He's got something Rashford-esque about him in the fact that he just wants to take people on, even when it's probably not a smart idea to do so. And he really does offer us a different element of a lot of our other players. Right, we don't have a lot of gung ho, I'm going to go at this fullback over and over again type of players in our team. And the fact that he exists in that team is really a point of versatility for us. And if he's firing, we are, oppositions are in trouble. If you've got Saka to worry about, Martinelli to worry about, Trossard to worry about, Havertz to worry about in terms of bloody elbowing you and heading you and doing all kinds of dirty stuff up front, and then you've got Odegaard and Nwaneri behind them, like we're creating so many different threats. And that's what I want to see us have. I want to see, doesn't matter who the opposition is, they're worried about multiple players in our team. I don't want us to become, if you shut down Saka, they can't score. Or if you shut down Trossard, they can't score. That's not the kind of team that I want us to become. And Martinelli, I think, is a crucial part of that. So I'm going to give him big props for yesterday. Goal and assist. He's back on it. Everyone can calm down now with all their 007s or whatever they're trying to do about 9 months, no goals and assists and all that stuff. And I hope that he can kick on from this to continue. I think he's got a good opportunity here. If he can build a good partnership with Calafiori, because it does look like the two of them really do work well. They've now had, Gabriel Martinelli got an assist for the the Calafiori goal against City. He's now got a goal and assist today in Saturday's match. Like, this is a good platform for him to kick off on. And if Calafiori can stay fit, I think the two of them can create a really good partnership. So, yeah, big shout out to Martinelli. Big shout out to Trossard as well. My man just keeps doing it. I don't know how he's doing it. He's shoveling it into the back of the net. He's scoring, like I said, Jota-like goals. Right, I'm not going to over egg the pudding and say he's the best player ever, but that knack of being able to score and score ugly and score all kinds of random weird goals is something we need in this team, because clinical finishing has not been one of our strengths recently and not been one of our strengths over the last couple of years. And the fact that he has clinical finishing where it's going in off his shins, he's kicking it off of bloody Woot Fires or whoever he's kicking it off to get that goal yesterday. I don't care what it was, but the fact that he can just shove it into the back of the net is a really good trait to have. And I can't put my finger on how he does it. I don't know if he's like just in the right position all the time, but he just manages to get these opportunities and he just takes advantage of them. So I got to give a big shout out to him. Outside of that, I think Saka was really good. He had a bit of a shadow game yesterday. I know some people are going to probably use that to say he didn't have a good game yesterday, but actually I think he really put in a good shift and he was pretty important for our team. And I think it just goes to show, without Saka, I don't even know what our team would look like, man. And I hope that Arsenal fans could recognise, even if he doesn't score or get an assist, what Saka does and what he provides for this team. Because, like you said, crosses. I don't know. I remember him not being that great at crosses, to be honest with you, like at the beginning. But now he just seems to be able to put the ball on a two-pence every single game. Him and Rice, I had no idea that they were this good at crosses and corners. And, that's pretty much the only way we're scoring this season, right? Off of set pieces and corners. And the fact that Saka just can be so consistent with that as well, it's really a positive sign that he's building up all of these different, these different capabilities and these different weapons that can affect different teams. So, yeah, those are the three that I want to big up. Obviously, the rest of the team, I'm not going to fault anyone for the goals. I don't think it was, I think they were kind of freakish goals. I don't know if anyone was necessarily to blame for them. And I think it would be pretty harsh to put them, to blame or pull someone out for both of those goals. But anyway, Do you have any other questions? Anything else you want to talk about with the Arsenal Leicester game before we move on to the previews?
Nah, yeah, man. Just stay positive about it. It was a good win. It was a win that you needed to get for multiple reasons. I think there's no world where you guys can't beat Leicester at home. You have to get 3 points, and that the City dropping points made it even more crucial. But I think you've got to look at those games as at home. You have to get wins um, against the smaller teams, and that was clearly where you kind of dropped points last season. So if you keep getting them, whatever way you do, that's the most important thing. And now you're right into the the depths of a title race that's going to start beginning over the next couple of weeks, I imagine. On the Martinelli thing, yeah, I get it, man. Um, he's been definitely getting the G&A, which has been lacking over the last, I don't know, 6-7 months or whatever the period of time is. He's always put a shift in, so I feel like the Arsenal fans always need to rightly back him because he does what he needs to do for the team. He's obviously a bit of a confidence player, so he hasn't had that when it comes to his attacking output recently. But yeah, getting the little assist, even though obviously you know my opinion about those kind of like bounce pass 5 yard assists when Calafiori scores a
What are
wonder
you going to
goal.
call it? The Sancho assists? Yeah, that's what we'll call them from now on.
No, they're all like that. They when our players get them, I'm also like it makes me feel a bit weird when you say that's an assist, but it counts.
Yeah,
But I think his overall performance against City was very good anyway. So I think it's the overall performance that gives him confidence to come into this game. I thought he was your best player against City, or one of the best players against City, and he was probably your best player against Leicester, if not between him and Trossard. So yeah, big him up, man. I like him. I think he's a good player. I think and I think this applies to everyone in your team. If you're able to go out there and get someone who's clearly a better player, or is like a world generational star type player, you get them. But if you can't, which is most teams are unlikely to be able to get those kind of players, you stick with what you've
yeah,
got. You've got a very very good team. So unless
yeah,
you're able to get, I don't know, there's a handful of players out there that might be better than Martinelli. I mean, like definitively like your
yeah,
Nico Williams and stuff like that. Unless you're able to get those guys, he's more than good enough to keep you in a title race and get you, get you over the line. So I think you've just
yeah,
got to persevere with him and try and back your boy. If he starts to not give the effort, not give the work rate, and then also stink it up with the output going forward, then question marks should be rightly raised. But I think he's always been kind of ticking at least one or two of those boxes most of the time. So yeah, I think people just got agendas against Gabriel Martinelli. I've got to be honest. I think he's a good player. And yeah, man, happy days for you guys. And yeah, crack on, keep the form going, and things will definitely get easier when you get Odegaard. I think your heart's going to be in your mouth for the next couple of weeks because I think it will be a struggle.
yeah,
Because it does impact your style of play. But the good thing is, like you said, and like you've been crying out for months and months, you've got other avenues and ways to get goals that don't rely on fluent football, right? Saka's crossing, Rice's crossing, your aerial ability, your knack for scoring important goals that come from, your Trossards and stuff like that. I think you should be positive and rightly so. So yeah, big up
yeah.
Arsenal and yeah, you're the lesser of all the evils involved in this title race, so you'll get my support again.
I endorse this message. All right, mate.
Mm.
Let's get on to the previews then. We've got a lot of games to preview. Just read it out quickly. So Arsenal have got PSG in the Champions League. I think it's on Tuesday, right?
I think so, yeah.
On
Yeah.
Amazon Prime or whatever. So that'll be an interesting one. Arsenal at home. You've got Porto against Man United. That's a real throwback there. I'm going to call it the Mourinho derby.
Mm.
And that's at Porto's ground. So that's going to be a tough one for you guys. And then on the weekend, we've got Arsenal against Southampton. That's at home for Arsenal. And you've got Aston Villa against Man United. So you've got a couple of real hard games to play because that is at Villa Park as well. So that's not going to be an easy one, particularly if Unai Emery is still steaming the way he was yesterday. But let's get into it. We'll start with the Arsenal PSG game. You know what? I'm going to let you go first because I need some time to think about this, mate.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. PSG is a curious case because they were obviously like Mbappe FC
Yeah.
for the last couple of years. They've been kind of shedding the rest of their superstars for more of a younger core to support Mbappe on his quest to get the Champions League, and they've obviously not achieved that. And now he's left, so they've kind of been left with a real mixture of up and coming talent. Your Zaire Emerys and your
Barcola. Yeah.
Kang In Lees and your Barcolas and your all kinds of these kind of players. And then they've got kind of like ex world stars or potential world stars like your Usman Dembele's and your your other players, your Marquinhos in defence and Donnarumma's and all these kind of guys. So it's a bit of a weird squad and a weird team to analyse. But looking at their form in League On, they've been doing okay. They've had a couple of draws here and there, which you probably expect them to get wins in. So I'll be honest with you, I totally expect an Arsenal win in this game. And I don't think you guys
Interesting.
should accept. I don't think you should accept anything less. If this was an Mbappe, Neymar, Messi type team, or when they've had a more solid, experienced core, I would say this could be a tricky game for you guys because they have more experience in the Champions League. But looking at their core now, a lot of those players don't have a huge amount of experience in the Champions League. A lot of them are young players. A lot of them are up and coming stars. And I feel like you guys are actually probably, weirdly enough, more experienced than them. So I would expect you guys to get a home win. If this was away, it might be a slightly different thing. But at home, I think you guys with your crowd, with the players that you've got now back available, your Rices, your Sakas, your Havertzes, the Martinelli's back in form, your defence being so strong, I think you should win this game, and I think you will win this game. So I'm going to go Arsenal to win this game 3-1. But I don't think, honestly, I think this Leicester game that you've just had should be will turn out being harder game for you guys overall. I think PSG should be one that you should win. I'm not going to say comfortably,
Interesting.
but I don't think you should have too much trouble with them. What do you think?
So I mean, it's just the name PSG. It worries you, doesn't it? I don't know why, because really they haven't really done
It
anything
should.
on the
It shouldn't.
European stage. I know, but you just see that name and you think, oh crap, this is not going to be an easy game. But I agree with you. I think they're. I'm not going to say they're a shell of what they once were, but they're definitely in a transition phase, right? They're in a transitory period where they're trying to figure out what is their identity now that Mbappe is gone. And let's be honest, the Mbappe hole is a large hole to leave afterwards, and so it could be. I think for any team that wasn't backed by an extremely rich owner, it could be a ruinous point for them, right? Like you see a lot of this happen when the star player leaves a club; they kind of fade into irrelevance almost. I think with PSG, obviously that can't happen because they're the best French team around, and they've got so much money to just continue to attract the best young players and the next stars. So there's a kind of a half, head and heart answer here for me. I think in my head we should beat them because I think we are overall a better team right now in terms of the way that we play. I'm not going to say man for man we're better in every position because I don't think that's true, but I do think that we just play as a team better, right? And I think that should, if I'm using my head, result in a win for us. But there's also just that heart element, which is PSG have got players that either have massive amounts of potential or have shown that they are disgustingly good previously and maybe are off form. So that always worries me is that all they need to have is one of those players have a really good game, and then there's going to be some trouble for us because some of those players are absolute world beaters. So that's the heart element that kind of makes me worry a bit. But I'm going to back my team. I'm going to back my boys, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 Arsenal win. I don't think it will be comfortable, though. I think it will be, a scrappy game. I think our defenders will have to really prove themselves. I hope Saliba and Gabriel have a good night's rest because they're gonna be coming up against some really good players. I really also hope Calafiori can deal with. I'm assuming Dembele will play on the right hand side, right, cutting in. I really hope Calafiori can deal with him because that is going to be a big test. Dembele, while injury prone, is a player with a crazy amount of weapons in terms of his speed and his dribbling ability, and that could cause a player like Calafiori, who's kind of more like a hybrid centre back left back mix. It could cause him some issues. So I really hope he can come out of that looking good. Obviously, Ben White is injured now. I think he's doubtful for that game. Zinchenko obviously still out as well. So we're going to have to really, Tomiyasu out too. So we're either going to have to rely on him or Kiwior. And I'm not going to want to rely on Kiwior too much in that game. So, yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win, but I do think it could go either way. But let's move on to Porto Man United. So that one is on. Let me just double check. I think it's on Thursday at the Estadio do Dragão. What do you think? Do you think this is the turning point? Do you reckon Ten Hag gets you out of the mud in this one?
No, absolutely no chance. So I have to be honest. I'm not trying to be ultra negative, but I just can't see a way for us to pick ourselves up in such a short space of time and get a win in this game. And this is probably one of the toughest games we've got in our 8 Europa League games that we've been given this season. And I can't see a world in which we get a win in this game. I think the best thing we're hoping for is kind of an all-action draw, kind of like we had against Galatasaray last season in the group stages, where we're either up or down and it ends up being a draw. I think that's probably the best case scenario. I think the most realistic result, though, is Porto to probably nick it. And I say that because I have no evidence that my team can stand up against any sort of pressure, especially away from home, especially in European competition. I think Ten Hag has not had a good time of it. And I think, especially going into this game on, the level of confidence and the low morale we'll have after losing, back-to-back home big fixtures against teams in the Big Six in the Premier League. So I'm going to go for Porto to win it 2-1. But I think that's just me being, logical with what we've done so far this season. But that doesn't necessarily mean we can't get a draw or somehow miraculously get a win. But I think logic tells you we're probably on a hiding to nothing, and I think we'll lose the game 2-1.
Yeah, I get you. I think it's going to be really important to see how Porto set up for this, because obviously we played Porto last season and I'm going to be honest with you, they housed it a bit. It was good play from them. And it's clear that they respected us in some sort of fashion, that they didn't want to come out and really, I'm assuming, play their natural football, because I'm going to assume that they don't just house it every single week, right? And that they've actually got a style of play that is somewhat attractive. So the fact that they did that against us, I think they showed respect to us. So it's going to be interesting to see if they respect you. And I think if they don't respect you, I think you can win. If they come out and think, you know what, we've seen Man United, the name is one thing, but the way that they're playing right now is poor, and they come at you, I think it could end up being a stupid mistake for them, and I think they could end up losing, because I think on the counter-attack, you guys still have the weapons to punish a team. And yes, you've got a donut-like defense in midfield, but I think you could possibly outscore them with the way that you guys play, especially if, you've got Bruno firing, and I've got to believe that Bruno will start firing at some point, right? He hasn't, he's always answered to the haters at some point. It's taken a while every now and then, but he's eventually come out and done something, right? He's had stinking games and then come back and done something good. So I think if he's firing, and I think he's going to want to fire, with obviously his Portuguese background and playing for Sporting and probably not liking Porto too much, he's going to want to fire. And I think that could be the undoing of Porto. So it's really going to depend, because if they set up and respect you, I think they beat you. But I think if they don't respect you, they could live to regret that. So I'm going to go, in the sake of interest, like being interesting, I'm going to go for a Man United win. I'm going to go for a 2-0, 2-1 Man United win. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Man United win. I've got to make this prediction table interesting. I've got to give you a chance to catch up, mate. So I'm not just going to keep on going for the same results as you. So yeah, we'll go for a Porto loss to Man United 2-1. Let's get on to the Arsenal-Southampton game. So this is I think it's a Saturday kickoff. I don't think it's televised, is it? No, it's a 3 p.m. kickoff, so it's not televised. Yeah. Again, thanks Premier League. Bloody, if it was Man City, they'd be on TV all the time. But anyway, I'm going to go for a 3-0 Arsenal win. I think this is going to be the boring beating that I want to see. I think it's not going to be like exciting in the fact of being competitive. I think we're just going to dispatch them. And I wouldn't be surprised if Martinelli got on the score sheet again.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think this is probably the easiest game to predict out of the lot. I think you're going to absolutely spank them silly. I think Southampton are a perfect example of a team that are going to rely on hipsters loving the way that they play out from the back, and they're the best example of probably what Gary Neville's been moaning about so much with his kind of anti play out from the back rhetoric that he's been coming out with. They're a great example of know who you are, know your heritage, know what you're up against, and don't. And you've had a perfect example, Southampton, of this exact model going absolutely tits up last season with Burnley and Vincent Company. So the fact that they're deciding to play this way, I don't even blame Russell Martin because that's how they played in the Championship. But I'm sorry, you've got to use a bit of nous, you've got to show some tactical flexibility, and you've got to realise who you are. And Southampton, even though they're a bit of a heritage Premier League team, and I quite like them actually, I've always quite liked them. The fact that they're choosing to continue down this path is just stupid, and I think they're going to be an absolute sitting duck coming up against you guys at the Emirates. I think you'll be coming off a big Champions League win and a couple of back-to-back wins in the Premier League, and I think this will be the easiest game to predict. So I'm going to actually go for you guys to win 4-0. Yeah, I don't think they can score a goal to save their life, so I'm going to go 4-0 Arsenal.
All right, and then let's get on to the last game. So that's the Villa-Man United game. That is a Sunday 2 p.m. kickoff, so I'm assuming that will be televised. It's at Villa Park. Obviously, Villa did not get a great result against Ipswich. Ended up being a 2-2 draw. They've got to be disappointed with that one. I think at the beginning of the season, they probably would have started and thought that Man United would be one of the competitors for that fourth spot that they're probably trying to get again. Not sure if they still believe that, though, based on Man United's current form. So we'll see how that goes. I'll start with you. How do you think this game's going to go, mate?
It's a tricky one because I've been watching these Villa games and they've been quite leaky in defence. Actually, they've given a lot. They've given nearly every single team they've come up against a chance to score goals. They've either been 2-0 down in certain games or, like yesterday against Ipswich, been giving them opportunities to score goals. And I think those opportunities will be there again for us. But I can't see a world in which we don't concede and most likely concede early. And Villa Park is one of those old school stadiums where they really get up for it, and it's a bit of a Barclays heritage ground. And I don't think we do well traditionally at those grounds. I know we won last season with a McSauce header in the last 10 minutes or whatever. And to be honest, I felt like it was quite well deserved in that game. I didn't think Villa played that well. But I think the circumstances are very different this season. I think they'll probably be going in off most likely a big performance against Bayern Munich in the midweek. And I don't know if they'll win that game. And I think even if they lose that game, I don't think that will dent their morale because they're kind of just enjoying the Champions League experience. So if they get anything other than a defeat in that game, they'll take it as a bonus and as a confidence booster. So I think that's totally possible, and I think it's the opposite for us. I think we'll most likely come off the back of a negative result and a couple of negative results. So I think our morale will be in the opposite direction. So I can't see us winning this game, and I have to be honest, I'm finding it really difficult to predict 2 Man U losses in a row. So because of that reason and only that reason, I'm going to say it's going to be a 2-2 draw. But I think I'm going with my heart in that and not my head. I think the most likely result is a Villa win, but I can't pull myself to predict 2 defeats in a row for United. So that's my only saving grace for them.
Oh goodness! All right, I'm going to go for an Aston Villa win. I think it will be 2-1. I think they're at home. They've got that advantage. I think, as you said, they get up for it. I think they're going to be coming off of. I don't necessarily agree with you in terms of the fact that I think that they will do well against Bayern. I think Bayern are still levels ahead of them. But I think they will just be wanting to bounce back from the Ipswich, and then what I predict is going to be a Bayern win against them, and they're going to want to bounce back. And as a couple of people said yesterday, I can't remember who they were. It might have been Ashley Young. But if you're a team struggling, needing a result, come to Man United. Man United is the team to give it to you. They were calling you, I think it was like Charity FC or whatever it is. You guys are just making a wish for every team that needs a win at the moment. And so I think they will probably just about have the quality to get past you. I think in terms of their attack, man, like the fact that now Duran's coming out as being like an absolute gunman, on top of the fact that they already had somewhat of a gunman in Watkins, is mental. And I think that does not bode well for Man United. But I don't think they're going to smash you. I still don't think you guys are going to allow that to happen. So I'll go 2-1. So just to wrap that up, so for the Arsenal PSG game, you've gone for a 3-1 Arsenal PSG Arsenal win. I've gone for a 2-0 win. In the Porto Man United game, you've gone for a 2-1 Porto win. I've gone for a 2-1 Man United win. And then for the Arsenal Southampton game, you've gone for a 4-0 Arsenal win. I've gone for a 3-0 Arsenal win. And lastly, on the Aston Villa Man United game, you've gone for a 2-2 draw. I've gone for a 2-1 Aston Villa win. So, scoreboard wise, there could be a big bit of ground made up here, mate, because we've gone for, two similar results and then two different results, and in two very iffy Man United games. So I think the score right now is 16-6. I can't remember off the top of my head what we actually predicted for last week, but I'm going to assume that I predicted an Arsenal win. So I would have got points.
I can tell you. So we both got the Arsenal results correct in the midweek, and not the correct results. Sorry, we got the wins correctly predicted.
The outcome,
both predicted
right, yeah.
we both predicted Arsenal to beat Bolton. I almost got the score right. I think I was a bit closer than you, but we both didn't get the correct score. We both predicted an Arsenal win against Leicester, but we didn't get the score correct. And then for United, we predicted incorrectly United win against 20, and it was a draw. And then against Tottenham, we both predicted a Man U win, and it was obviously a defeat. So we both got 2 points this week. So we are as we were.